Febiven was once a young, bright mid-lane prospect. He made his name in the juggernaut of the LEC, then EULCS, Fnatic. But it begets the question, does anyone even remember who he truly was? And why isn't he playing professionally currently? If it weren't for some choice decisions, which some were in his control and others were up to the gods, things might have gone a bit different for his career. My claim is that Febiven, still to this day, doesn't get his due credit from the community.
Original death push by the original gangsters. Origin, stop this one out. Amazing, he's split up on the rest of the team by the monster. He's down. Becker follows quickly. Soaz is being focused out as Febiven is chasing with the death ray. The Febiven flash finds another target.
And he didn't get respect from current Western teams and coaches, which would now actually prolong his career to the current era. But there's a lot of backstory of Febiven's career, and while this won't be his complete story, it will be highlights that add color to his career. This is the tragic story of Febiven. Known as a mechanical prodigy, Febiven throughout his career has been known for his LeBlanc, Riven, Orianna, and of course, his Zed. He started out in the challenger scene on Cloud9 Eclipse. The team dissolved into H2K, and Febiven would get all the way through the challenger qualifier to play against Copenhagen Wolves, where they would fail, but they got one more chance by facing Giants to ultimately win and make it into the LEC.
The Nexus goes down. H2K, welcome to the LCS.
But he would ultimately change teams to join Fnatic for the 2015 season after that.
I heard that Fnatic contacted me. I was like, I really couldn't sleep. I couldn't believe it. Like, adrenaline was like out of the roof, and I was so energetic. Which kid at 17, 18 years old, just qualifying for LCS, doesn't want to play in Fnatic and have a starting position?
Febiven had massive shoes to fill, as legendary player Xpeke had left the team to form his own in Origin to fight through the challenger scene. Fnatic's new lineup consisted of Huni and Reignover, both unproven Korean players that didn't come from superstar teams, Febiven, Steelback, and Yellowstar. This team was not expected to do very well, as the only remaining player from the former lineup was Yellowstar. In Febiven's first game on Fnatic, he faced the superteam Elements, which at the time consisted of Wicked, Shook, Froggen, Reckless, who moved from Fnatic from the previous year to form this super team, and Nif. Febiven would stomp this game on Xerath after receiving all 3 bans against him in the mid lane and post an absurd 22 KDA. Yes, the rumors were true. This kid was fucking good. They won Spring Split, went to MSI, where Fnatic would drop out at semis, taking SKT to 5 games. But crucially, Febiven put on display that he was a world-class mid laner by solo killing Faker.
So the visits into the jungle not as fruitful.
And there's the jump mark coming in. And will it be enough? The pop and the ignites.
Not once though, but twice.
Goal down again against an aggressive pick-making team. Faker eats 2 shurikens. The knockup is interrupted as Febiven materializes. Ignite plus 1 more. That is 2 1v1s in a game.
So for added context, this was actually a really big deal to solo kill Faker twice, and the West was talking about it constantly because in this year, you have to consider Faker was one of the best players in the world at the time, and many actually consider his 2015 year to be peak Faker, along with year 2017 up to debate. But it was a very monumental moment, and not every day do you get to solo kill Faker, unless you're a Gold 4 brand.
An enemy has been slain.
Then they went on to Summer Split after picking up Reckless to replace Steelback and went a mind-boggling 18-0.
And Fnatic will become the first team in LCS history to do it. The perfect split, 18-0.
A feat that still, to this day, has never been replicated in the West, and only 2 other teams in the 4 major regions have ever accomplished, with SKT in 2022 spring and EDG in 2016 summer. This team was looking like the strongest Western team ever headed into Worlds. And critically, Fnatic seemed to understand the lane swap meta better than any other team in the world. But famously, before Worlds began, Riot would drop the Juggernaut patch 5.16.
They gotta finish it. Amazing can jump over the wall. Who's gonna win this fight? It goes to the red team. That goes to Origin. Here's the battle. Karsa alone in front, absorbing, gets dunked. Soaz is online. Maple's down. He's still going. He doesn't get the third until Zonius comes across. He gets some damage on this thing. He gets the kill. He's on the NL, and it's gonna be to save the game. Soaz gets a pentakill after Baron.
5.16 would be the bad stroke of luck that began Febiven's career, as Mordekaiser was so broken in this patch at Worlds, he could have Dragon as a pet minion, Darius was simply unkillable, and GP was simply just mega broken.
But this was simply the beginning of the tragic part of Febiven's career, as Riot found a bug on Gragas.
There is seemingly an issue with Reignover's Q on Gragas. Now there is the proposed situation, which there's a known bug with Gragas where you can't use your Q until you die. So
Gragas was one of 2 of Reignover's best champions in the jungle. That basically gave a free ban from the enemy teams that ever played Fnatic. And at this time, you only had 3 bans per side. Almost always, all 3 of which would need to be Mordekaiser, GP, and Darius if you're on the red side. So, in their game against the legendary Ku Tigers in the semifinals, Hojin, their jungler on Ku Tigers, didn't even really play Gragas. He only had a couple games on that. So, Fnatic got 3-0'd and knocked out completely from Worlds. If not for the Gragas bug, I think we could have seen a different series from Fnatic and Ku Tigers. Essentially, this was like a big middle finger to Fnatic and Febiven.
I think ASQ is gonna win because C9's playstyle is really predictable and they're drafting in a similar way every game, so I think they're definitely counterable, and ASQ is the better team.
And I'm not saying that Fnatic would have actually won, but I think it would have been a little bit more competitive and a better series looking at the reflection of history and how Reignover's champion pool was just so limited to begin with anyways, and I think we largely would have seen a different series if not for the Gragas bug. 2016 was not a good year for Febiven. Reignover and Huni have finally left to North America to join Immortals, and Yellowstar also went to North America to join TSM. The lineup for Fnatic was now Gamsu and Spirit, which came from Korea, not from very notable teams, or rather, they weren't notable players, Febiven, Reckless, and Noxiac. Now, I covered this in my previous video about Gamsu rejoining the LCS, so go check that out if you're interested in the history of Gamsu, but in it, I detail that this lineup was very, very dysfunctional. Spirit didn't seem to mesh well with the team's playstyle, Reckless couldn't sync up with Noxiac.
You say how is our synergy now? How to rate our synergy?
I would rate it a lot better now than it was 2 weeks ago.
And essentially, Febiven was there to pick up the pieces and hopefully things would work out. But they didn't. Fnatic had to bring in another support named Klaj, which helped improve things, but it was clear that this lineup wasn't working, and they still managed to get third in playoffs. For 2016 summer, they brought back Yellowstar, but this time, Yellowstar's skill had declined massively after his brief stint on TSM, where the organization placed 6th place in the regular season, just barely making playoffs, which is the lowest finish in the org's history, at the time at least, to now he went to Fnatic, where he would once again set a bad record of having Fnatic miss the semifinals for the first time in the org's history. And what makes this split even crazier, not only with bringing in an old Yellowstar past his prime, but also too, they had to replace Gamsu in week 7 with Kikis. And not only that, it gets worse. They end up kicking Daylor, their famous coach at the time, before playoffs start.
So, or people are not trying, or people don't care, or we don't have faith on each other. So this is something really serious. And it didn't even feel like we were fighting for our lives. And I don't want to see this shit again. No, for me, the bad part is not losing, it's how we lost.
So this team was very dysfunctional and had a lot of problems going on internally. For 2017, Febiven returns to H2K, and this part of his history really isn't that interesting, so I'm not going to go that in depth about it because, as I said before, this isn't a rehashing of his entire history. But for brevity, the lineup was Otoamne, Jankos, Febiven, Nuclear, and Che, both of those two bot laners of which were both Korean, coming from Korea. H2K wouldn't reach any significant success and often fell short during best of fives. Now, to quote Kelsey Moser, H2K's mistakes come from reaching for something more in a side lane and with members of the team split. They also come from panic forcing if the team feels it already invested into a fight. In draft, the mistakes come from a sense of stubbornness and a default to play comfort. So, that's a complete write-off for H2K and for Febiven's career, and the fact that H2K was a very dysfunctional team at that time.
A lot of the guys we targeted were people we thought were, frankly, undervalued or, not thought of as well, right? Like, Febiven's amazing. He, if you had asked me at the beginning of last year or the year before who's the best mid in Europe, I don't think there'd be a question. It would have been Febiven.
3 kills already for his year. Through on the back line and pushed away though. This could be the on towards Rhodes. Give it to me, deserves it. And a passive kill for Febiven in his 3rd game in North America.
For 2018, Febiven got the big offer to go to NA to finally collect the bag. But just like so many other Europeans before him, got a poisoned chalice.
In Plymouth Harbor, England, the Mayflower II lies at anchor, a famous ship come to life again.
No, I'm not talking about those Europeans, although they too also got a poisoned chalice. Febiven would join Clutch Gaming, a new organization in the LCS, and a lineup that was made off of the Moneyball principle.
Analytics are just an application of the scientific process using numbers and having more concrete evidence to get answers to questions you may intuit otherwise.
The lineup was Solo, Lyra, Febiven, Apollo, and Hakuho. This team was not very good, considering Golden Guardians, Optic Gaming were both abysmal, going 4-14 and 5-13 respectively. The competition in the LCS was very top heavy. Regardless, they would still make playoffs and semifinals, dropping to 100 Thieves 3-2. For 2018 summer, the team would do abysmal, not even making playoffs. Apollo was slowly declining in his ability to function properly as an ADC, having some of the highest death percentages in the entire league. Lyra also quickly dropped off a cliff in summer, and it seemed Lyra was just not on the same page as his team, citing that they didn't even want to do VOD reviews by themselves in order to better their own gameplay individually. David Lim was failing as a coach and could not improve Fleur's synergy with the team, even going as far as to put in his favorite buddy Piglet to try and fix the roster's problems. David Lim was let go from Clutch in Week 7, guaranteeing that this roster was essentially just writing off this entire year. This 2018 roster was a disaster, and I would argue that Solo and Febiven were the only bright spots on this team that made it even possible to win games. Now we head into the redemption arc of Febiven. Or so it was supposed to be written in the book of Genesis.
Go ye therefore, and teach all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost.
Turns out Febiven couldn't teach North America shit. 2019, Febiven moved back to Europe, joining the superteam Misfits Gaming. But as we know about superteams at this point, they're all doomed to fail. The lineup consisted of Soaz, Maxlore, Febiven, Hansama, and Gorilla. Now on paper, this roster looks insane.
Winning the offseason, I think we can say they definitely did that, not only in front of the scenes with this roster, but behind the scenes. They took a serious look at their organization coming into LEC and changed just about everything and came up with this.
Yeah, and this roster, it just looks so stacked. It has the first EU Faker Slayer in Febiven returning back to Europe. You also have one of the best players of all time coming over from the LCK in Gorilla, and the veteran Soaz joining from Fnatic as well, around the foundation of Hansama and Maxlore, who two of the big carries for Misfits last year. So on paper, you see that there is so much potential, providing experience, mechanical prowess, and synergy that can excel this team to the top.
But at closer examination, Gorilla was a little bit past his prime, and Soaz as well. But more importantly, this lineup's playstyle simply didn't fit.
I mean, Misfits seems, it's hard to say 100% what Misfits issues are. I think it could be a wide variety of things, but honestly, it just does not look like there is any team cohesion on the stage.
Well, hey, can we just go Nash if they're going to go free ball like this?
Yes, you can start. You can run it.
Come top. They're going to contest.
Can we do it? No, just do it.
Okay, I'm starting. I'm starting. Sentry, use your W. Kalista, use your W.
I don't have W. Oh my god. ATP on the touch.
I don't know why. Do you use wobble?
Can we
really far.
Can we burst it? They're really far.
1k5 burst.
Yeah.
Oh, CBS roll.
We have to one-shot him.
The big cannon.
No?
There wasn't an aggressive player other than Hansama, arguably. There was also the problems with Maxlore, as he simply didn't look like his former self.
If you could change or identify one problem or one thing about the team, what would it be and why?
Me.
Why?
Because this split I wasn't like my former self, and if I was, the team would have way better results.
Jesus then stepped in as head coach, but it was cited that he came from a perspective too much of a player and not from someone that would be typical of a head coach, which made things a little bit more complicated.
Jesus at the time was still, like, in my eyes, just a pro player, just like me.
Yes.
Like very emotionally driven, like cares a lot, gets frustrated, just like all the players basically, right? So I think this group needed something like fucking miracle coach to make it work, and I think it was a very hard group, and I don't blame. I think it was really it was really impossible for Jesus at the time to understand how to make this team work.
Hussein had to step in the middle of spring to revive things, but it was already too late.
The team went into summer, and a bizarre scene of events Misfits then decided to sub in their entire academy roster along with Jesus. So this entire year would be a major stain on mismanagement from the Misfits organization, and this would spell doom for Febiven's career. He would not join a tier 1 team again after joining Fnatic Rising and then eventually leaving the pro scene entirely.
Why he's not playing professionally? I mean, honestly, it is kind of crazy that he's not playing professionally. He's for sure better than, like, at least the bottom tier LEC mids.
The end of his career sparked a feeling of spite and disdain. As a TwitLonger post from July 2021, he cited that, quote, "I've decided to stop playing because the chance of me getting back into a top team is very low because of the decisions that I've made during my career," end quote. And also saying, quote, "Generally, the work ethic in the scene is extremely saddening. There's very little players who give their 110% on a daily basis and have the drive to become one of the greatest," end quote. It's clear that Febiven was very disenchanted by the scene, and in his own words, the decisions he made in his career, but of which I don't think were largely in his control, led to his demise. If it weren't for a couple key factors, the Juggernaut patch of 2015, the sad lineup of 2016 Fnatic, and the tragic move to North America, and also the mismanagement of a super team in 2019 of Misfits Gaming, it's no wonder that Febiven's career is one of the most tragic stories in the history of League of Legends.